Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. Story 1. The Thread Under the Bed. When I stepped into Northmere High, I was a quiet shadow in a bustling crowd. That's when I met Leora. She became the sun in my personal sky for the next decade. I was the kind of kid who hugged the walls and hoped not to be seen. But Leora? She grabbed my hand and danced us both into a world that was suddenly full of light. We had other friends, sure, but when the music stopped and everyone else had gone home, it was always the two of us. Naturally, we made a pact to go to the same college, pursue the same major, business, since she said it was the key to all doors. I trusted her like gravity, and as luck, or fate, would have it, we got into our dream school. We shared a dorm that first year, and for the next 3, we rented an off-campus apartment just blocks from campus. By graduation, I thought, why not keep this going? We could get a real taste of adulting together. But first, jobs. She landed an interview first at a mid-sized consulting firm and nailed it. A week later, she was in, and she used her new clout to get me in the door too. I got the job a month later. It felt like magic. We rented studio apartments on the same street, and Leora said, "We can be independent without being apart." And we were. It felt almost unfair how lucky I was to have found her, but working and living in proximity brought a shift. My position required longer hours, always an hour more than hers. It's tedious to explain the roles, but that extra hour added up. At first, she'd wait so we could catch the train together. But the commuter crush got brutal, and she started heading out right after work, always checking in with a quick message. I did the same, sometimes just an emoji to say I was home. Safe. The strange thing was, I had something I hadn't had since high school. Time. Alone. I started doing mundane things by myself. Grocery shopping, for example. And that's where I met Asher. I've always been offbeat, not exactly relationship-driven. Aside from a 2-week boyfriend back in high school and a few awkward kisses in college, romance wasn't really my thing. Bookish fantasy men were enough for me. Until Asher. Our carts bumped in the produce aisle, classic rom-com stuff, and he flirted like a guy who knew he was exactly someone's type. Mine. That night didn't end with him leaving, and it didn't end the next day either. He wasn't a fling. He lived nearby, and we became something real. It took me nearly 3 weeks to notice that I hadn't seen Leora. She cornered me after work one evening, clearly upset. I apologized. I truly hadn't meant to distance myself. Memes and texts weren't enough, she said. Fair. She asked what I was doing that night, and I mentioned Asher. To say she was stunned is putting it mildly. When I explained how serious it was getting, she went pale. I reassured her I wasn't naive, but I did have plans with him, so I couldn't hang out. It didn't sit well with her. We had always promised never to become the girls who forgot their friends for some guy. I told her we were grown now. Plans mattered. She sighed, declared we were hanging out the next night, and said I'd better be ready to spill everything. And I did. I shared what I could, minus the private stuff. But she kept prying. Where did he live? What was his exact job title? His star sign? Birthday? I found it weird, but I answered what I knew. She asked me to find out the rest. We agreed to meet, again soon at a new restaurant. I mentioned the name without thinking much. Big mistake. Leora showed up. Asher and I were already seated when she just appeared, like a ghost. She didn't say anything, just stood there. The silence. Heavy. I looked at Asher, and he, being kind, invited her to sit. I wasn't thrilled. The next day, Leora asked if we could do a girls' night at my place. I was relieved. Maybe I could address the ambush politely. We did have fun that night. Laughed, ate junk, and when I brought up the restaurant incident, she brushed it off so lightly that I let it slide. But a few days later, Asher went radio silent. No texts, no calls. I didn't want to panic, but something felt off. I tried to pass time by cleaning. That's when I found it. A small shoebox tucked under my bed. I never kept shoeboxes. It was odd, child-sized. I nearly tossed it but felt compelled to look. Inside was disturbing. A napkin with grease stains, a crusty lipstick, some tangled hair, a tiny vial of black liquid. The scent? Incense, but a cloying, headache-inducing type. What truly unsettled me was the napkin. It bore the logo of the restaurant from our double-knot date. I hadn't taken a napkin, which left only two suspects, Leora or Asher. And this didn't feel like him. Memory jolted me. Once in high school I found something odd under my bed, a sock that smelled like old perfume and decay. Leora had been there, comforting me post-breakup. She scooped it up before I could inspect and said, "Don't worry about it." My gut clenched. I took a photo of the contents and posted anonymously on a forum. The replies flooded in. "Don't touch it. That's witchcraft. Malefic intentions." One user asked, "Are you having relationship problems?" I said yes. They said, "That's not random. That box was meant to break you two apart." I had to confront her. I brought the box to work, lured Leora into the office bathroom during lunch, and asked if everything was okay with Asher. She smiled, too smoothly. I locked eyes with her and pulled the box from my bag. She denied everything. But her expression changed, tight, unreadable. I brought up the sock from high school. She didn't move, just stared at me through the mirror. Her reflection felt wrong, like it didn't match her body. Her face wasn't twisted exactly, but something dark simmered just beneath the surface. Think of the moment in a fairy tale where the princess's face morphs, only in the mirror. Then she grabbed the box and tossed it into the trash. "Fine," she said. "I did it. What now?" I asked why. She wouldn't answer, just whispered, "Have you broken up yet?" I told her Asher and I hadn't spoken in days, and she laughed. Not with joy, with certainty. "It's over," she said. "You're mine." She stepped toward me and took my hand. I flinched. She brushed her fingers along my knuckles, gentle but too slow. Then she grabbed my other hand and did the same. The pressure increased, digging into the creases between my bones. It hurt. I was pinned, mute with panic. Her fingers moved like she was counting something. Then the door opened, a loud burst of sound, and just like that, it was over. She backed away, calm as ever, smiled and said, "We'll talk later," then walked out. We never did talk again. She transferred departments, cut me off completely, just vanished. Asher called that very night, said he'd been scared about our relationship, moving too fast but regretted ghosting me, wanted to fix things. Coincidence? Maybe. but my knuckles still ache when it rains, and sometimes I catch myself looking in mirrors too long, afraid of what might stare back. Story 2. The Man with All the Answers. There's something you should know about friendly people. The ones who slide perfectly into your life like they've always belonged might just be the ones to watch out for. That's what I learned, painfully, after meeting Declan. At the time, I was part of a tight crew. 8 of us total, 5 guys, 3 girls. We'd been close since high school, and we stuck together through college because we all enrolled at nearby Hawthorne State. A lot of people lose their childhood, friendships to the grind of adult life, but not us. We were a living time capsule, always revisiting the same old jokes and late-night food spots. Being around them felt like sinking into your favorite hoodie, worn in, a little messy, but comforting as hell. That said, we weren't exactly the most welcoming to outsiders. When someone dated one of us, they stayed at arm's length. No one really broke into the inner circle until Declan. He was introduced to us by my buddy Julian, who'd met him through work. And, man, Declan was magnetic, just the right kind of confident. Not loud or showy, but smooth. He had this way of talking that made you feel like he saw through everyone else in the room and picked you. Even as someone who was very much into women, I found myself leaning in when he spoke. He was that compelling. He wasn't touchy in a creepy way, but he'd rest a hand on your shoulder or give a casual clap on the back and you'd feel seen, heard, important. So, it didn't take long before Declan started tagging along to our hangouts more regularly. And honestly, we didn't mind. He brought new energy, new stories, like that one about how he ran away from home at 11 to see a girl across the state line, or how he once got caught stealing snacks from a gas station, but ended up befriending the cop who arrested him. These weren't humble brags. They were tales spun with charm and just enough mystery to keep you hanging on. He told us that after years of rebellion, he had found purpose. That life was about helping people now, being useful, uplifting others. I mean, sure, it sounded a little performative, but he backed it up. When Camilla, one of the girls in our group, got fired after reporting her sleazy manager, Declan jumped into the group chat with a, "Don't worry, I've got this." Within 2 weeks, she had a new job, better pay, actual benefits. She didn't even want to pursue legal action after that. Declan was a hero. When Luna needed to move, he brought in a whole squad of friends to help. No trucks to rent, no money spent, just favors. And that was how it started. Little by little, we all owed him something. He became our problem solver, our guide, our anchor. And the strangest part? Even though he was the last to join, it started to feel like Declan was running the show. He picked the bars, the restaurants, the activities. At first, it was fun, a welcome change from our routine. But one night, the cracks began to show. Camilla said she was craving wings from our usual dive. Declan had seen a flyer for a local Vietnamese spot and said, "We should support small businesses." I wanted wings too, but no one wanted to disagree with him. We went with his pick. It was fine, tasty even, but something about how easily we abandoned our plan for his felt off. I brushed it aside. Then Ellen, another girl in our group, introduced us to her boyfriend, Miles. He seemed cool, kind, smart. But a few weeks later, she told us they'd broken up, said it just didn't feel right. I found out the truth during one of Declan's many impromptu events, a Brazilian BBQ night with karaoke. While everyone was belting 80s hits, Julian told me what really happened. Declan didn't like Miles, said he caught him checking out other women, claimed he knew people who'd confirmed Miles was bad news. He told Ellen, and not long after, she dumped the guy. Julian was grateful. He said it was nice that someone finally had the girls' backs, that Declan was protective in a way none of us had been. I felt weird about it. Meddling like that? Deciding who someone else should date? Julian shrugged. Declan's just looking out for us. And maybe he was. I mean, when my parents' basement flooded and the insurance denied the claim, Declan found people to help with repairs on the cheap. He even organized a little donation among our friends. So yeah, he'd earned the goodwill, which must be why we all said yes when he invited us on a glamping trip. We were at Luna's place when he announced it, said it was his sacred tradition, a weekend getaway to reconnect with nature and each other. I groaned. I'm not the outdoorsy type. Camilla either. But the rest of the crew jumped on board. Julian even joked that we owed Declan too much to say no. Declan grinned like he'd won a prize. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Fine. Glamping it is. When the weekend came, we drove 5 hours into the mountains to a campsite that, while technically glamping, was rough. Tents, cot beds, and a shared bathhouse. No AC, no internet. Not my idea of a good time. Still, we tried to make the best of it. Declan gathered us around the campfire pit, unlit as it was still light out, and said he liked to start the weekend with a spiritual moment. He wasn't religious, he explained. Just connected. He wanted us to feel the earth, the energy, the unity. We tried, really. But then someone cracked a joke, and it spiraled. Soon, we were reenacting goofy scenes from the proposal, dancing around like idiots. Everyone laughed, except Declan. His smile had faded, and without a word, he retreated into his tent. I should have paid more attention. The next morning, he told us we were going on a hike, deep into the woods. I groaned again. Bad back, remember? But the group was energized, so I caved. We trekked for hours. Finally, we arrived at a secluded waterfall. It was stunning, untouched, ice cold. Declan said, "Now take off your clothes," laughed, obviously a joke. But it wasn't. He repeated himself. "This is what we came for. Everyone strips down and gets in." I said no, firmly. So did Camilla, Luna, Ellen. Declan's smile dropped. "You owe me," he said, turning to Camilla. "I got you that job. I fixed your life. You owe me trust." That word, "owe," kept bouncing around in my skull. Then something terrifying happened. The other guys, Julian, Ollie, Matt, stood beside Declan, and with a glance from him they surrounded us. It was coordinated, practiced. They started grabbing at our arms, our jackets. Declan didn't move. He just watched, like a general letting his soldiers do the dirty work. I shoved Ollie off of me, helped the girls huddle together. I yelled, told them to knock it off. Declan, still naked, stood atop a boulder and began chanting his own name. Then the others joined in. It was like a cult ritual. Wild, deranged, animalistic, and we were trapped. They circled us, shouting, stripping, laughing. The women were crying. I was shaking. Then Declan said, "Join us, or you're out, for good." I looked at my friends, my supposed brothers, and realized they weren't coming back from whatever spell they were under. I told Declan to screw himself, that we were leaving. He spat on my boots. We ran, huddled together. I used my phone's GPS to guide us back. They taunted us from behind, catcalled, laughed, but we didn't stop. We got to camp, packed up, and piled into my SUV. That drive back was deathly silent, except for Ellen and Luna sobbing in the back seat. Camilla reached for my hand. Finally, she whispered, "What was that?" I didn't know. When we got home, I offered to go to the police with them. Camilla called a lawyer friend instead. He said there wasn't enough for a case, that it would be written off as just friends being weird. It didn't feel like nothing to us. We met again at Camilla's house the next day. We told each other stories we hadn't shared, like how Declan used to show up at Luna's uninvited, how Ellen's boyfriend hadn't dumped her. Declan scared him off. All the red flags. Hindsight, in full color. We made a pact that day. We were done. With Declan, with the guys who stood with him, with the illusion that our group had ever been unbreakable. They tried contacting us, of course. Texts, voicemails. Even Declan showed up at my place. I threatened to call the cops. He left. Eventually, they all faded away. I still have friends. I'm not alone. But that trip left scars on all of us. Ellen got back with her boyfriend. They're engaged now. Camilla moved abroad. Luna bought a house with someone new. As for Declan, he's a life coach now, has followers, a podcast, inspirational reels. I don't watch them. I don't need reminders of what I saw in those woods. Story 3. The Queen of Porcelain. When I first met Nella's family, it felt like I'd stumbled into a fairy tale. Her mother, Mariah, welcomed me like I was already one of her own. From the very first dinner, she made room for me. Not just at the table, but in their traditions. Her father, Clyde, wasn't a talker, just a grizzled ex-carpenter with calloused hands and the emotional range of a brick wall, but he was respectful and pleasant enough. I'd never known a family like that. Mine was complicated. My own. Grandmother barely acknowledged my mom because of some Cold War-style feud, and holidays were typically disasters served with dry turkey and passive aggression. So, to be around Mariah and Clyde was like walking into a warm kitchen where something was always on the stove and someone always had your back. By the time I proposed to Nella, her mom had already stitched me into the fabric of their world. When I invited her to the bridal shop to see the dress, she cried harder than anyone else. At the wedding, she gave a toast that made half the guests teary-eyed. Even my own mother leaned in and whispered, "You hit the jackpot." I agreed. At the time, it felt like everything I'd ever wanted. Let's call it what it was. A trap lined in linen. We got married in early spring and honeymooned on the cliffs of Cozumel. Long walks, deep talks, and romantic sunsets. You know, all the postcard stuff. Somewhere between margaritas and moonlight, Nella and I talked about the future. I told her I wasn't ready for kids just yet. I had plans to get my MFA, maybe teach. She nodded, smiling, said we had time. So far, so perfect. Back home, we slipped into our new roles. But little things started to shift, like hairline fractures in a window pane. I stopped cooking. Nella did it all. I left my socks on the floor. She picked them up. The housework somehow just became hers, like the vows included a silent job description. One Sunday, she was sprawled on the couch trying to catch her breath after a rough work week, and I dropped a bomb. "My parents are coming for lunch in an hour," she blinked. "You just told me?" "I thought I mentioned it," I said. "Anyway, it's going to be our new thing. Sunday lunches with them." She sat up slowly. "Every week." I shrugged like it was no big deal. That first Sunday, Nella cooked a roast, vacuumed the living room, and got the house looking so perfect it could have gone on a magazine cover. I mowed the lawn and called. It even. Mariah and Clyde arrived right on time, warm and chatty as ever. Over lunch, we shared honeymoon stories and laughed about Nella's sunburn. Afterward, I headed outside with Dad to have a beer, leaving the women to clean up. When I came back in, the laughter was gone. Nella looked rattled. Later that evening, she told me what happened. While drying dishes, she vented a little, said I was being lazier than usual and she didn't sign up to be a maid. Mariah chuckled and said, "Oh, honey, that's just marriage. Men always get comfortable." Nella asked how she'd handled that with Clyde. Mariah's eyes had gone steely. "Why change it? I took care of him. That's what being a wife means." Nella thought she was joking. She wasn't. When Nella explained she was planning to go to grad school and wait a few years before having kids, Mariah grabbed her arm, hard, and whispered, "You're not getting any younger. Don't be selfish. Give my grandchildren a proper home." It rattled her. That night, Nella told me everything. She laid it out plainly. If I wanted a housewife, she wasn't it. If I couldn't handle a marriage of equals, we'd have to end it. I panicked, of course, promised I'd change, and for a while I did. But Mariah? She doubled down. She started popping by during the week, unannounced. One time she showed up with a family cookbook and said it was tradition for all the wives to learn the recipes. She sat at the kitchen island, sipping tea while Nella cooked for her. Another time, she brought over Clyde's shirts and taught Nella how to sew on buttons, just in case. Then there was a laundry day. She insisted on teaching Nella her special folding technique for socks. Every visit had the same tone. A lesson. Like Nella was being groomed for some mid-century homemaker role, Nella confided in me again. I told her I'd talk to my mom. Did I? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I half-assed it. Maybe I was just too used to nodding when Mariah spoke. One night, Mariah invited Nella over, played nice, brought out photo albums of me as a kid, gave her homemade cookies. But the real purpose revealed itself halfway through. Baby talk. Grandchild hints. Nella smiled politely, said nothing. Then came the worst night. Nella had a brutal work day. She walked through the door and found Mariah already. Waiting inside, said she used the spare key we'd gifted her. Mariah sniffed the air. "You need to air this place out. And it smells dusty. Are you vacuuming regularly?" Nella poured herself some water, trying to keep calm. Mariah followed her into the kitchen and clicked her tongue at 2 unwashed dishes in the sink. "You need to take this more seriously," she said. "A good wife keeps a clean house. I'm coming more often. You need training." That did it. Nella slammed her glass on the counter and said, "I'm not a damn golden retriever, and you don't get to train me." Mariah blinked. That calm, pleasant expression went dead cold. Then she left. No shouting, no drama, just silence. The next few days were eerie. Nella tried calling, no answer. I told her I'd ask my mom if everything was okay. Mariah said she was just resting. Then we got busy. Life took over. Weeks passed. Nella got rejected from all her grad school apps, which crushed her. I was working longer hours. Before we knew it, the holidays were here. Thanksgiving dinner was at Mariah and Clyde's place. The extended family was invited, so Nella baked a pie from the Sacred Family cookbook. When she handed it to Mariah, she wrinkled her nose and muttered, "Didn't think you were the cooking type." Throughout the evening, people avoided her. Conversations died when she entered rooms. I didn't notice until much later. I was too busy catching up with cousins. After dinner, while everyone lingered outside, Nella pulled Mariah aside in the kitchen. She apologized for yelling that night and tried to explain. Said she never meant to be disrespectful. Mariah set down a tray of glasses and turned slowly. "You had your chance," she said. "You showed me you're not worthy of my son. But don't worry, I'll fix that." Nella blinked. "Fix what?" "You." Then she dropped the hammer. She told Nella she'd called all the grad schools and badmouthed her to admissions. She even contacted Nella's boss, who happened to be married to Mariah's cousin, said she'd spread enough rumors to ensure Nella wouldn't get far in her career fantasy. "You'll be home soon," Mariah said, smiling, "and then you'll be ready to focus on what matters, my son and my future grandchildren." Nella asked why she was admitting all of this. Mariah didn't hesitate. "Because no one will believe you. They love me." And Nella realized that was true. The weird behavior at dinner, the cold shoulders, Mariah had poisoned the well. Mariah turned to leave but added one final jab. "You were trying to have Eric neutered, weren't you?" That night, Nella told me everything. I listened with my arms crossed. Silent. When she finished, I said something I thought would help. "Maybe my mom's right. You'd make a great homemaker. You should stop fighting it." Nella just stared at me, and I knew I'd messed up. She asked if I'd known what Mariah was doing, if we had planned this together. I didn't answer. She slapped me. I deserved it, but I slapped her back. I didn't think. I just reacted. And in that instant, everything shattered. All the warmth, the years, the vows, they disintegrated. Nella didn't collapse or cry. She packed. Within an hour, she was loading her suitcase into the car. I caught her before she left. She turned to me, calm but blazing with fury. "You'll never find anyone like me," I said because I was an idiot. She smiled. "Good," and drove away. Years have passed. I hear she remarried, a kind man. They have a child, and Nella's staying home by choice now. They parent together. They share chores. They laugh. She went back to school too, finally got into that program. And she's thriving. As for me, Mariah still invites me to dinner. She still asks about when I'll settle down again, but I just sit there, eating bland turkey and stale nostalgia, thinking about what I lost. And I wonder, maybe the dream wasn't the marriage. It was just her. If something feels off, it probably is. Whether it's a friend, a partner, or even family. No relationship is worth sacrificing your peace, identity, or freedom. Speak up. Trust your gut. Walk away when you must. And most importantly, choose yourself. Because the life you rebuild on your terms is worth more than any illusion you're asked to live inside.